Hi everyone, and welcome back to our series of lessons looking at Germany in the 20s and 30s. So, we're on to our second lesson in this series of lessons, and it's all about the Weimar Republic and how it gets set up. So, this is an area that people find really tricky, and it can feel overwhelming, but you're not going to let it overwhelm you because the ideas are quite straightforward. It's just that the names for it are unfamiliar and so seem complicated. And because there's quite a few new names, it can feel like a lot that isn't easy to understand. Don't let that happen to you. You know, everything that is in the lesson is going to be straightforward. It might just have an unfamiliar name. So we're starting off with our question. What was the Weimar Republic? So this is the first of our things that people get confused of. What is the Weimar Republic? Nice and straightforward. It's Germany before the Nazis. So Germany after the Kaiser, before the Nazis, is called the Weimar Republic. Okay, so it's just a name for the government for Germany. So what was the Weimar Republic? The government of Germany. And our learning objective, you're going to have evaluated or weighed up how strong you think the Weimar Republic was, how weak you think it was. So, Germany, as we know, gets off to a really bad start. The Weimar Republic gets off to a really bad start after World War One. So, the Kaiser goes, the Kaiser abdicates, and then they have a series of elections. So in the elections, 82% of people voted, which is really high. Normally, you don't get that many people turning out to vote. Moderate sort of centre parties, parties that have ideas that aren't that out there, that aren't too extreme, they gain around 60% of the seats that are up for grabs. So after the elections, it was decided that Berlin, the capital of Germany, is too dangerous a place for the new members of the new government to meet. Therefore, the decision was taken to meet in the more peaceful surroundings of the town of Weimar. So the W is pronounced as a V, Weimar, and it's that setting that gives its name to the government, the Weimar Republic. So if you remember from last lesson, a republic just means that the people vote in their leaders. So it's the republic from Weimar, Weimar Republic. So they have a job on their hands, and that is to decide a second new term, a constitution. So constitution is so simple. It's just a list of rules for how the country is going to be run. So beforehand, they had the system set up, they had the Kaiser. When the Kaiser goes, they're kind of left with nothing. So they're starting from scratch. So the constitution is like, well, how is the country going to work? So lots of countries have constitutions, and they might say things like, we're going to have a president. We're going to have elections every 2 years, every 4 years, every 6 years. So they're just rules for how the country's run. So the Kaiser goes, they've new people in charge. They need to work out what their country's going to look like. What does the Weimar Republic look like? So very, very sensibly, they agree to have a temporary council, the Council of People's Representatives. And the idea is they're just going to exist until elections can take place. In the meantime, whilst everyone's getting up the elections and they're getting people to vote for who they want on their sort of new government, these people would just keep the country running. So, very sensible idea. So, this is what the Constitution decides. The country will be run by a chancellor. So day to day running of Germany is going to be done by the Chancellor. So think of the Chancellor like our Prime Minister. So the Chancellor is going to be doing day to day running of Germany, just like our Prime Minister runs Britain. There would, however, be a president. So elected every 7 years. They're not going to get involved with day to day running. But what they are going to do, they have some really important roles like choosing the chancellor, like naming the next chancellor. And there was the idea that they were going to have the chancellor from the biggest party in parliament. So there's a president there. It's just in case the chancellor gets too much power. The president's there to kind of share power, to step in if there's a problem. They're going to have a parliament. So they're going to have two houses in the parliament, the Reichstag and the Reichsrat. The Reichsrat we don't need to know about in much detail. It's the Reichstag that you hear about on this course. So the Reichstag is just the parliament. So full of members of parliament that are elected by the people, the Reichstag. So whenever we talk about the Reichstag from here on out, we basically mean the parliament. And it's very democratic. These people are voted in by every man and women over the age of 21. So equal voting rights for men and women, which was unusual at the time. Britain was a few years off getting anything like that. So voted in by every man, every woman over the age of 21. So that is the bare bones of the Constitution. So they've sat around, what are our rules going to be for our new country? We're going to have a chancellor, we're going to have parliament, who are we going to give the vote to? All men and women over the age of 21. So they have their elections and who wins them. So Friedrich Ebert, so he becomes the new president. Remember, he's the guy that comes in after the Kaiser. He's the one that signs the armistice or the ceasefire for World War One. And he asked Philip Scheidemann, the same party, to be chancellor and form a government. So Scheidemann's doing day-to-day running of Germany. So that's what the Weimar Constitution is. So Constitution, list of rules and how the country is going to be run for the Weimar Republic, Germany, before the Nazis. So we're going to look at the list of rules that they drew up and just decide whether we think they did a good job. So did they bring in some good rules for how the country was going to be run? And there are a lot of things that they do really well that they are strong with. So it is really democratic, especially for women. So, like I said, it's rare that women get equal voting rights men at this time, and there are lots of opportunities for people to vote in their leaders. So if people don't like how the government is running, they can vote them out the next election. There is our third complicated phrase, proportional representation. And this comes up quite a few times, but again, it is something really simple. So they have elections. Every party that gets a certain number of votes, in this case 60,000, gets a seat. So if you're a really big party, you're going to get lots of seats. But even if you're a small party, you could still get one or two seats in the government. So it's slightly different from how other countries do it. So there are some advantages to it. So smaller parties get a voice. Proportional representation just means everyone getting more than 60,000 votes gets a seat in the government, gets their voice heard. And no one person had too much power. They were very careful. So they've got the parliament with the Reichstag, they've got the chancellor, they've got the president. What they're doing is they're dividing power up and they're splitting it between different people or different groups of people. So a real break away from the Kaiser having all that power in one person and that one person not being elected, just inheriting it when their father dies or their grandfather dies. So lots about the Weimar Constitution that's really strong. So it's fair, it's democratic, they're making sure no one person is too powerful. There are, however, inherent weaknesses in it. So there are reasons why it is really weak. The issue with proportional representation is you end up with lots and lots of really small parties that have like one seat, two seats, three seats. So nobody really has a strong majority. So if you think it's very, very difficult to get them to agree on anything, if you need a majority to pass a vote, you need 51%, but you've got 20 really small parties, it's very hard to get that done. So what the parties do, and this is our fourth keyword, is they form coalitions. So coalition, really fancy word for team. You team up with someone else. So you find another party that you have lots in common with, you make lots of agreements, you agree with lots of things. So what you do, you team up and you vote together. It's not ideal if you want to get things done, because getting a coalition, it takes time. They're also quite weak. The teams break apart quite easily. So if you've ever done anything that involves teamwork, you can see how problematic it is. So proportional representation. Everyone who has at least 60,000 votes gets a seat. Great for smaller parties, great for being fair, giving everyone a voice. Bad for getting things done though, because they have to team up with other small parties. Several of the parties in the Weimar Republic don't like democracy, which seems absolutely crazy, but there you have it. They don't think democracy is a good idea. And you might remember I said last lesson, we're really familiar with democracy. We know it can work. It's really new to people in Germany at this time. So there are lots of people who think democracy will never work and actively think it's a bad idea, and they're in the government. So in the election, they've got more than 60,000 seats, so their voices in there. And several of them, it's not even just one, quite a few of them, we don't like democracy. Crazy. And then finally, Article 48. Article 48 is so important. And it was such a bad idea, though it came from a good place. So Article 48 said, if there's an emergency, there's an absolute crisis, the Chancellor needs to act quickly. They can pass laws without going through the government. So the Chancellor can make up the laws. As long as the President agrees, it's fine. So in a crisis, the government goes, whoever's elected Chancellor just gets to make up whatever laws they feel like. And it came from a really good place. It came from a place of, well, what if there's a crisis and the government's taking too long? It's a good idea to have someone who can just react. And the kind of feeling that if someone's been elected chancellor, they've been chosen by the president, they've been voted in, they're obviously going to be a really good person. So therefore, they'll make sensible laws if they use Article 48 and any way the president signs off on it, is the idea. In reality, it's going to be one of the main reasons Hitler gets power. So Hitler, in a few lessons' time, is going to use Article 48 to say he can rule on his own without the government, and then we're going to get the Nazi dictatorship. So Article 48, they're for good reasons, supposed to be really nice, supposed to be really helpful. They just cannot foresee the danger that is coming. So Article 48, tuck it into your memory. It's really important. So summarizing the new government, the Weimar Republic. So think to yourself, overall, how effective do you think the Weimar Republic is going to be in Germany? Think about the constitution they've set up. Think about the kind of things that are important to them. What problems do you think they are going to face? So I've told you one with Article 48. Why? Why do you think those problems are going to be there? So there's quite a few new terms. Like I say, this is the lesson that if a student gets overwhelmed, it's going to be with this one. So I hope I've explained it to you clearly. If I haven't though, just send me a message and just say, can you go over this again? And I'll be happy to help.